My name is Kinsley Sinclair. I'm 35 years old, and I was 26 when I came home from a 12-hour hospital shift and my own key wouldn't turn in the lock. New lock, freshly installed. My mother opened the door with a face that wasn't surprised. It was rehearsed. She told me my sister needed stability, that they'd decided as a family it would be better if I found my own place for a while. So I asked one simple question, standing there with my hospital badge still swinging around my neck. I asked who had been paying their mortgage for the past 14 months. It would take 9 years for them to ever call me again. If you truly love and appreciate your parents, take just 1 second to subscribe to this channel. Vitals. It means a lot to us. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from? My sister Belle is 3 years younger than me, and from the time she was old enough to cry on command, she knew exactly how to use it. Every single time something good was happening for me, a school play, a birthday, a college acceptance, something always went wrong for her instead, and it always somehow needed our parents' full attention immediately. I kept telling myself she'd grow out of it. I kept believing that right up until the day that lock refused to turn. The lock was new, shiny, the kind of impulse purchase you make same day when you've decided something and don't want to give yourself time to overthink it. I knocked. My mother's expression wasn't shock. It was closer to something she'd practiced in a mirror. She told me Belle was going through something, that they'd talked it over as a family, as if I hadn't been part of that family for 26 years, and that it would be better for everyone if I found somewhere else to stay while Belle got back on her feet. I asked who'd been covering the mortgage all this time. My mother's calm cracked for just a second before she said Belle really needed them right now. What she didn't say out loud, but what her silence confirmed completely, was that none of it mattered. Not the 14 months I'd quietly absorbed their entire financial crisis. Not the automatic transfers I set up without ever asking for a thank you. Not the vacations or savings goals I'd put off. None of it mattered because somewhere inside that house, Belle was crying, and when Belle cried, everything else stopped existing. 14 months earlier, my father had been laid off after 19 years at the same job. My parents had drained most of their savings during a health scare the year before, and they were 4 months behind on the mortgage. I only found out because Belle, panicked and useless in any practical sense, called me because she genuinely had no idea what to do. So I stepped in. I did the math, made the calls, set up the transfers myself, never asked to be repaid, never used it as leverage. To me, it wasn't charity, it was just what family meant. And there I was on that porch, still wearing my hospital badge, being told my presence in a house I was quietly keeping afloat had become inconvenient. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Not there anyway. I took a breath that lasted about 4 seconds too long, looked at my mother and said, "Okay." She looked relieved. That was the detail that stayed with me the whole drive to my friend Waverly's apartment, where I slept on her couch for 3 nights before I could even think straight. Not the locked door. Not the phrase as a family. The relief on her face, like I was a problem that had just conveniently solved itself. Sitting in my car outside Waverly's building, that first night I made myself one quiet promise. I was going to build something so undeniable that one day the only thing left for them to do was look at everything I'd become and remember exactly who they locked out in the dark. I had no idea it would take 9 years. I had no idea what it would finally take to make them pick up the phone. Those 9 years weren't easy, and I won't pretend otherwise. I grieved. I grieved the family I thought I'd had, the version of my mother I believed would always choose me when it counted. I cried in Waverly's bathroom with the shower running so she wouldn't hear. I went to work the next morning with concealer under my eyes and a smile I had to consciously piece together. But I kept moving, because that was the one thing I knew how to do reliably. I found a 1-bedroom apartment 20 minutes from the hospital, radiator clicking all winter, window facing a brick wall. It was mine, and that mattered more than I can explain. I painted the bedroom navy blue, I bought a plant and kept it alive. Small wins, but I collected them like currency. At work, I started pushing harder. I'd always been reliable, but never particularly ambitious. Because ambition requires believing you deserve more than you currently have. And for a long time, I wasn't sure I did. That locked door changed something in me, slowly. I volunteered for projects outside my department, earned 2 certifications in healthcare administration, started speaking up in rooms I used to stand quietly in. Within 2 years, I was promoted to operations supervisor. Within 4, I was managing a team of 23 people across 2 hospital wings. Within 6, I was sitting in director-level meetings, giving my opinion on budget restructuring and having it implemented. Outside of work, I built a whole different life too. full of people who chose me with no agenda and complete information. Waverly stayed my closest friend. I met a woman named Soren through a running group, someone with her own complicated family history, who never needed an explanation for why I went quiet on certain holidays. I built real financial footing of my own, savings, investments, a condo at 31 with only my name on the deed, which I admit I stared at for an embarrassingly long time the day I signed. I hadn't spoken to my parents through any of it. Not a birthday text, not a holiday card. Not out of anger exactly. I'd just decided the relationship as it existed wasn't something I was willing to keep carrying, and nothing had shown me it was worth reopening. Belle reached out once, about 2 years in, a message so carefully worded I could practically see her typing and deleting and retyping it. I read it. I never replied. Some doors, once you understand why they closed, don't need to be reopened. Then, 9 years after that porch, my mother called. I was at my desk reviewing quarterly projections when a number I'd never deleted lit up my phone, which tells you something about the parts of yourself you can't fully reason away. I let it ring. She called again an hour later. Then my father called too from his own number, which almost never deepened since he'd always let my mother handle anything emotional. 2 calls from 2 different numbers in one afternoon felt like a script they'd rehearsed together. I called back that evening from my own condo, standing at my kitchen window looking out at actual trees, a view I had chosen entirely for myself. My mother's voice sounded older. She told me Belle had moved across the country 2 years earlier for a relationship that had since collapsed and hadn't come back. That my father now had a heart condition requiring ongoing care. That the house, the same house, was heading toward foreclosure again within 90 days. She asked if I could help. The silence I let sit wasn't dramatic or calculated. It was just the space I needed to find something true inside myself before I answered. Then I asked her one question. I asked if she remembered who had saved that house the first time. The pause on her end lasted even longer than mine. I told her I'd think about it. I told her I needed a week. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already made my decision, not about the money, which had stopped being the actual point, but about what I was finally completely ready to stop carrying for people who had never once understood what it cost me to carry it.